Hello, yes. Welcome back to the Lil RES podcast, also known as the Radish Exclusionary Salad podcast.
I don't like radishes in my salad.
It is 40 degrees today and windy, although it's doesn't look that windy outside. The skies it was overcast when we were setting up, Rich, but now it's actually blue, which is breaking a small streak of overcast days uh, for podcasts. Here's the gnocchi of the day, wherever it is on the screen. I don't actually know what it's gonna be. I didn't pick one. I just realized that.
Mm.
So it'll be something. It's a mystery gnocchi. Here's the hat of the day. This is my Hello Kitty X Pac-Man hat. You can see it right there. It says Hello Kitty X Pac-Man. This is a collaboration with the what would you call it? I don't know, like a hype
Well, it
beast
would be it
store.
would be Bandai and Namco.
Bandai Namco owns Hello Kitty, and then Hello Kitty, or not Hello Kitty, Pac-Man, and then I think Hello Kitty is its like own company. Um,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Because they've Bandai also has a Hello Kitty Gundam collaboration, which
Oh,
is like
maybe they
sick.
do own both. Yeah, I guess there might be like
I
a
don't know. I
conglomerate or
don't know.
something.
No
You're
clue.
right. The Hello, don't you have the Hello Kitty Gundam?
I
It's
do. I still need
sick.
to build it. It's sick. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, this was a Bait collaboration. Bait is like it's not a skate shop. It's like, they sell like, I don't know, like hype beast-esque stuff, like vinyl figures, shoes, but they also
Mm.
have hats. They have like cool hats. So I have my Hello Kitty X Pac-Man hat. I have seen another one of these in the wild before, which I almost have never ever seen when it comes to my hats. But I actually saw someone on the bus one time who was wearing the black version of this hat, and it blew my mind. Um,
That's awesome.
Hat of the day. Yeah. How are you doing today, Richard?
I'm good. What you were just talking about though, really quick, with the like seeing someone in the wild wearing your niche interest.
Yeah.
In my experience, it like almost never goes well, like greeting them or like complimenting them on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got the Uniqlo Gundam like collaboration like shirt, and I like they made a whole line of them, but like I saw one other guy in the wild wearing it. And like I was like, dude, your shirt is so cool, and I could tell I just kind of made him like really uncomfortable. Or they like you make a reference, and because they're not cued into what the heck you're saying, and they're like busy with their own lives,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
just
yeah.
like,
It
huh, like
doesn't
what?
click.
And then you just walk away with your head full of shame. But
Yeah.
I still do it every time in the hope of having that connection in the wild. But I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Off of that, it's funny you bring that up. I was thinking about times I've done that before, and the miss rate is shockingly high. It's
It's
like
not
it's like
great.
come on, you're the one like wearing your niche hobbies on literally your sleeve. Like, don't make it like I'm the weird one here, dude. Like
Yeah.
one time I saw somebody, they had like this like indie band hat, this like pretty niche indie band, like a local one, and I was like, oh yo, like nice hat, like the band, and the dude didn't even he gave me the look like, what are you talking, he gave me this like what the hell, weirdo. And I was like, I know that band, like what are you talking about, dude? Come on. Like I know this is the type of band that would have like, like 10,000 plays on Spotify type stuff.
Mm,
Like, come on, throw me a bone here. But I guess it's
yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, so you're right. Like they're like, doing their own thing. They never would expect anybody to recognize that kind of thing. Um, so I get it. Anyways, how am I doing? I am doing well. I've been on really across the last couple of pods, things are just like up and up. I'm feeling better and better about my work. Got the first half of part two of the StarCraft series on Patreon, the rough cut at least, but it's like 85%, 90% of the way there. Um, that was cool. I'm just like enjoying working a lot more recently. I'm trying to like what's the word? Not democratize, diversify my outputs. And I haven't been like pushing out a ton of stuff, but I've just been thinking about like, all right, besides like long form main channel videos, like the podcast actually, this is an example of like a different kind of outlet. What are like other ways I can push just like make stuff, make anything. And I want to like write more, so I've been thinking about what like Patreon like blog post type things could be, just writing random stuff. But I'm definitely feeling I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. There was it was what is it? Earlier this week I had a realization that some stuff that like I was really excited about recently, like Balatro, um, is like entering a more like equilibrium state where things are kind of leveling off. And on one hand, it's like, oh, like there's not really a lot of shiny new stuff going on for me right now. Although there is one thing I can think of that we talked about on Discord last night, that maybe we'll talk about today. We'll talk about it today. It's not a secret. Um, a new way of approaching a new way of doing social media that I've already latched onto quite hard. Um, but yeah, a lot of shiny stuff is not so shiny anymore. But that's normal, honeymoon phases and anything. Um, but where was I going with that? Oh, but I was like, yeah, that's just part of the ebb and flow of this stuff. Sometimes you're excited about stuff, sometimes you're not. But I still have that positive orientation. I think the days getting longer invariably helps too. It's almost embarrassing how much my mood is tied to like how much sunlight is out there. Um, but I think also things are just going well for me. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. How do we want to get started today? Is there anything? I'm gonna put the ball in your court. Actually, Rich. I'm curious if there's anything you wanted to start with.
Yeah, I mean, well, I see here, gray hairs have been a topic on your mind, and
Mm-hmm.
my hair right now is grown out about as long as I usually let it. And
Yeah.
when this happens, I get to see, like, I probably have like 40 gray hairs on each side of on the side of my head. So I definitely have been noticing them a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine are getting into. I first started noticing it in college, like in like my junior senior year. I got like my first couple, like one or two on my head, and it was like, oh shit. Um, and then over the years, I think I'm somewhere in the dozens. They're not, you can't at a glance see them, but if you look for them, they are around. I put it down because I've said this for a while now. I cannot wait to have gray hairs. I just like how gray hair looks a lot, and I really want to have like I want to have some ashy hair as soon as possible. My mom's side of the family, my grandparents, both of them, their hair went completely gray by the time they were like in their 20s. So I've got some good genes for losing the pigmentation of my hair. And when I was a kid, my dad was always stressed out about his hair going gray. um, but I just I don't think it's cope. I really don't, because I've like considered dyeing my hair gray before. I just for some
Hmm.
reason I love how it looks. I think it looks so cool. So I'm really excited.
Tom Scott
Dude,
has
yeah,
pretty
Tom
gray hair,
Scott has
doesn't
gray
he?
hair. Or Joel Haver,
Yeah.
he has gray hair. It's a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
dude. And here's the thing, having gray hair when you're young, I think it's a good look. I think you get this like free wisdom points, or at least perceptual wisdom points, just because it's like the contrast is like, oh, his hair is gray. Like that's gotta mean something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I like my gray hair, but like I was at like the office yesterday
yeah.
and like we have really good lighting in our bathroom, so like I was looking in the mirror and I'm like, man, I have a lot of gray hairs. And but when I was looking at the mirror, I'm like, but wait, old people have gray hairs. Wait, and I'm like, but I'm not like I'm not old. I don't like feel old. Like I don't act old. Like I don't know. It just like it caused my brain to go for a loop a little bit. It's like why do I have these?
I, I've gotten that exact same feeling, not with gray hairs, because these I've been hoping for. These I've been praying on. I don't know if that's how you use that phrase. Um, but I had this feeling what you're describing the other day because my like crow's feet, the like cracks in my eye are actually surprisingly intense.
Mm.
Like I'm and I'm always chuckling, I'm always laughing, and I'm like scrunching my eye. And the other day I noticed like, oh wow, I can like really see the like wrinkles around the sides of my eyes. Like it was like seeing the imprints in my skin was kind of I was like, "Oh man, that's making me feel old." And
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things that like at a glance, like I don't think you'd be able to see it on the video right now, but like if you get close to me, like the skin is clearly aged. It doesn't look like how it did when I was younger. Um and I was like, wow, and this is never gonna revert back. All I can do is slow it down, but it will never return. I mean, I could get Botox or something, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Huh, I guess we're aging. I guess I have to imagine the average demo for the podcast because the average demo for my videos is approximately my age. Depends on the video. Um, other people listening to this must also feel this way in their own ways. So
Yeah,
welcome to the
often
ride.
I don't often look closely at the mirror, but when I do, I'm like, "Oh wow, I have like spot like aging spots on my face,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
liver
yeah.
spot. I don't know what you call them, but like I'm like, wow, I definitely had like a more I had bouncier and clearer skin like
Yeah, yeah.
5, 10 years ago.
Do you
And
have
it's just like
do you have you gotten any like new moles?
uh I don't think so.
I've had a
But
couple start to
I
like
don't know.
pop up, like small
Mm,
ones that just did not exist for like the majority of my life. Um I don't think there's any.
age spots.
Should I look into that? Are there any
I mean,
health risks associated?
I
I
go to a dermatologist once a year just to make sure everything's all chilling.
Yeah, I'll ask about it the next time I go to the doctor. I'm not too worried. Um
The podcast does health anxiety.
yeah. Woo. Okay. I want to talk about something you were talking about pre-pod a little bit,
Mm.
which is starting with the resurgence of the Lil RES podcast, the current arc we're on post the like half year break. I've started watching back every episode in full before um, publishing the video, which on the previous episodes I never ever did. We recorded, I did whatever editing I could. If there was like some mid episode editing, I would like scrub to there, but I never would just listen back to the whole thing. I think the idea like made me cringe a little bit of like, oh, like seeing myself. But I've started being like, all right, I want to put out a good product. Even if this isn't going to get a ton of views or anything, like I want to get better at this regardless of how it performs. So part of that is like, all right, I have to listen back to the whole episode so I know how it is. And seeing yourself just talking for an hour is a bizarre feeling. It's because you don't normally do that. um, and like we're like on for the podcast, but this is also kind of how I carry myself normally. And so, yeah, we were talking about this the other day. It's made me more self-conscious, but not in like a negative way. In like a literally like I am more conscious of how I carry myself now. Um, because I'm starting to notice like, oh, I have this mannerism that I never was privy to before, just never thought about before. That like maybe I don't like very much, or maybe I want to kind of change. One of them I noticed that honestly irks me is that I end a lot of sentences with the word right. I go blah blah blah, right? And sometimes that's fine, but sometimes I'm like, ah, it's a little, I don't know, it's like not, I don't mean it in like a condescending way, but it's a little too presumptive to be like, I said something and you're on the same page as me. It's like me declaring that something is true in like this rhetorical like uh question kind of way that I'm just not a huge fan of. I'm not like thinking about it a lot, but that's just an example of something. Um, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think communication is a real skill. Being able to present yourself in an entertaining way is a real and valuable skill, whether it's like on the internet or in your day to day life. And so, me and you We've talked about we want to commit to the grind. Maybe we're not going to go extremely hard, but like improving our conversational, bantering, discursive skills. Yeah. Any thoughts there, Rich?
Yeah. So I think a lot about, for me, communication has always kind of been a skill I've wanted
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
improve. When I went into university, I was already accepted into my major, and all I had to do was keep like a 2 point some GPA. So there was no academic pressure for me,
Mm-hmm.
which is,
Mm-hmm.
is a very fortunate position to be in. We also went to a very challenging high school. So, like college, and I wasn't in the hardest of majors. So, like, it wasn't that like challenging. And so for me, my stated goal was like when I went off to college was like I want to learn how to like make friends and
Yeah.
communicate like in a good way. And
Yeah,
I mean,
you
it maybe didn't
actually
manifest
grinded
as that.
socialization. Like
Yeah, I did.
genuinely, like you were putting yourself in all kinds of like situations you were not normally comfortable with just so you could be like better at talking to a wide breadth of
Yeah,
people.
and now that I think about it, I definitely had a learning mentality when it came
Oh,
to like
yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. It's very interesting. Yeah, no,
Yeah, big fan
you
though.
your like ability to chat with almost anyone has developed like significantly over the years in my view. Um,
A good way to practice if you want reps is when you're with like an Uber driver, just try and like connect with them because you
yeah,
literally have
yeah,
nothing to lose. Like, see how deep you can get with someone who you'll never talk to again because there's literally nothing's at stake. You can adopt any persona you want. Like, you could take it down whatever direction you want. Like,
That's true. I had a it was like a year ago or something on a Uber drive to the airport for the first time in my life. I just straight up lied about who I was and what I did in the Uber just to see. Um and it was totally fine. I mean obviously it's fine, but I was like this is interesting. Like I've never
yeah.
done this before, but this person has a completely false impression of who I am as a person. But it wasn't mean spirit or anything. I took it that direction because it was kind of what I thought the person wanted to hear. I don't remember the exact details, but that she was like talking about like something related to like her son or her family. And I was like, okay, I think I know about enough about this stuff that I can just say I do
Right.
this professionally. It was some kind of like tech or I can't remember what it was. It was something that like isn't what I do, but is adjacent enough to what I do that I could just straight up like say I do it and she didn't know anything about it, but like besides like peripherally. So I was like, I know it beats the hit here. It was interesting. um yeah, I,
So
I
I
need
guess
to just talk to strangers and stuff more often. I was thinking I said like a episode or two back about like talking to kids at the Y. Oh my gosh, listening back to that episode, the way I worded it, I said something like, "Oh, like I should just like go down and like talk to the kid." The way I said it made me cringe because like this sounds so weird. Like I'm an adult and I'm talking about like talking to children. I just meant like it'd be interesting to know why people are here. And there's always the people who play basketball are kids. I don't need to explain myself. People know I'm not like a creep or something. Oh man, sorry. One other thing. When I was reviewing one, there was an episode where I said the context was we were talking. There's the TikTok episode. I said the algorithm can't peg me. It always puts me in a hole where it's showing me a ton of meat. And I was like, dude, this was like, I don't know what the joke is, but there's some like that's what she said or something there. I completely missed it. And the other thing was that like the meat thing was real. TikTok was just showing me a ton of meat videos, but I said, I was like pegged in a hole showing me meat. And I was like, how did I just gloss over that completely? That one also made me not like in a terrible way. I cringed a little because I was like, oh my god, I completely missed this. Like the double entendre is like crazy here. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Sorry, I
okay,
I, I
so
went on a little.
To bring things back full
Yeah, yeah.
circle, long story short, if you're looking for a workout or a rep scheme to increase learning, 5 times Uber conversations till failure.
Five times Uber convos till failure. Oh my gosh. I want to talk about so
Till
maybe some
failure.
people have seen it. The name 100 woman challenge. For people who don't know, the Twitch streamer Cutie Cinderella, excuse me, she made this Twitter tweet that was like, I'm challenging like streamers and like other internet personalities to like try and see how fast they can list 100 women. They have to be public figures. They can be living or dead. Um, they can't be people you know. Just, name 100 women. And I was like extremely curious what the experience of that would be like. Not for content, we didn't record or anything, but you and I and like a bunch of other people, we all got in a Google Sheets spreadsheet together. Everyone had their own tab, and it was like 7 people did it at, like at the same time, and we all just like tried to see how fast we could list 100 public figure women, and it was so hard. It took, what was my time? It took me like 35,
I, I have
40
I have it
minutes.
I have it pulled up right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. How long did
Let
I
me
take?
see.
Um,
You did it in 39 minutes and 19 seconds.
39 minutes and 19 seconds, and you're a little bit faster, right? Like
I was 36 minutes and 25
36
seconds.
minutes. And then my men, how long did my men take? It was like 25 minutes or something.
The Res 100 men tab. You did it in 1805.
1805. Yeah. Notably faster, and that doesn't surprise me. It speaks to our biases and both mine and society.
For looking at your list, it speaks to how many Smash players you
Yeah,
know.
I listed a lot of Melee players too to get through that one.
Oh, and YouTubers, true.
Yeah, YouTubers and Melee players.
Well, you are also like one of the things too is it's actually really hard just listing 100 of anything,
100
regardless of men
anything,
or
yeah.
women. So like I don't know if I were to list 100 men first and then list 100 women, if the woman would be like if the difference would be as much. It's hard to know how much of the time difference was a
Yeah, yeah.
function of like I don't know, like a function of us just being better at listing 100 or like a gap in knowledge between men and women,
Yeah.
which because as a male, you tend to focus more on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As humans, we focus on people that look like us, which in our case are men. Like,
Yeah, yeah. The it's definitely both, but there's definitely a skill to it because like, well, so we did it raw, just like no prep or anything. We just dived into it. And I remember that first couple of minutes when we started, my brain went into like hyper overdrive, and not in like a good way. I was like, okay, 100 women, 100 of something. And it was so impossible to like, I was like, I just was like overwhelmed immediately. It felt so much harder than I was expecting it. Like if you've never done this, you should try listing 100 of literally anything. It is shockingly
pretty
difficult.
hard. Yeah.
Um,
Numbers don't count.
yeah, yeah, don't yeah, 100 numbers doesn't count. Maybe not, and not letters either. There aren't really
Yeah.
100. Well, actually, no. Try listing 100 letters. You can do any language you want. Try listing. You can do English. You can do Hangul. You can do Cyrillic. You see how far you can get. I can't do 100. I guess if list 100 Chinese characters, if you speak Chinese, maybe is or 100 words. Okay, 100 things that are part of a clear taxonomy.
But that aren't part of like a system. I
That
think is
yeah,
the big
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Because if they're systems, your brain has already cataloged them, so it's much easier recall.
Yeah. Name 100 times during the day. Noon, 12:01.
Quarter past five, my favorite.
Yeah, yeah, but it was such an interesting exercise that we were like, we should do this like semi regularly. Just sit down and
Yeah.
try and list 100 of anything. And before this 100 woman challenge was even a thing, we've joked about animals till failure. This is not an
We
original
were ahead
idea.
of the curve. We were
Yeah.
ahead of the
Well,
curve
there's like a
here.
meme or something about it. It was like how do I like grind thinking? And then somebody was like, oh, like here's what I do. And one of the like bullet points is like animals till failure.
No, I thought it was alphabet till failure or
Oh, maybe it's
something.
alpha.
It was
Well,
even more dumb. It was
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. We've had this idea of like we should just well one day because well, I guess this is not really an announcement, but I'm gonna need to get a job soon-ish, and so I'm gonna look for a software engineering job. I'm still gonna make videos and stuff. I'm not stopping YouTube, but I just need money. Um, but one of the things I really wanted to make to like get back into the groove of things, um, was to make an animals till failure like Wordle type game where you go like to animalstillfailure.com and like you type in an animal and then the clock's on, you've got like 15 seconds to list the next animal
Animal.
and you just keep doing it until you end, and then it like will give you a report of like here's like the kingdoms, here's like the phylums, like here's the area of like the animal kingdom that you explored with your animals till failure. Because you were talking like if you did that every single day, you would get so freaking good at just rattling off animals. Like, imagine
It's
that's your party trick. You're just like axolotl, gazelle, lion, sparrow, sphere. I don't know. You just can list them like crazy fast.
yeah,
Um,
and honestly, listing 100, it's I know when at least for me, when I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be so easy." For me, I definitely had some hubris around it.
yeah,
But like
yeah,
the way I would describe it is like the normal rules of recall just don't seem to work, at least the first time you do it. Like
yeah, yeah,
you like people I was like in my head I was like, wait, like what's the actress that was in that movie? But if you were to ask me that exact question like out loud, I would know instantly. I'd be
yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
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 that's Jodie Foster, or like, oh, that's so there's that. And then it's also like you're running really fast and really frantically, but like you keep bumping into obstacles and have to keep shifting your direction. Like there's
yeah,
something
yeah.
about like the fear of doing it quick plus like 100 that makes you feel like you can't just
Mm-hmm.
exhaust a lane, or if you encounter a block your brain is just like we're out of options, boss. I know
Yeah.
for
Yeah, there's definitely an ego thing for sure. Like the ego stress is like huge because there's the ego of like I want to be able to do this fast, and there's also the ego thing of like, oh man, I don't want to be like some asshole who can't even name a woman. You know what I mean? um, but yeah, it's really it felt like near the end I was realizing, oh, this is kind of like in a weird way like open-ended trivia. You have to like generate your own categories within this like monolithic category and then see how you're able to like enumerate across those. Cuz one of our friends who did it with us, Ev, I've decided that Ev doesn't get to keep his anonymity because he might be on the podcast in a few episodes or something. And Ev is so like no one's gonna don't dox him, please. um, uh, Ev was like he was like he was like it's really fun to read through these lists because every list tells a story. Because nobody's is completely random. They're always chunked in certain like everyone had the Kardashian block, right? Kim K, Kylie Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, Chloe, and Courtney. Like those five, like almost everyone besides like one or two people had that exact block. And it makes sense because it's just like a clean chunk. Some of the most famous people, their names are all very similar to each other.
almost
Um,
everyone had Zendaya too.
yeah, Zendaya because of Dune. Yeah, that was, and Caitlin
Yeah.
Clark was very common as well.
Mm.
Yeah, it's an interesting expression of like who's in the zeitgeist at the moment as also. Yeah, I've been like really enjoying like trivia and stuff lately. Um I had a earlier like note for one of the previous episodes. I think it was the Normie Coded Memer episode, where I was like, we didn't get into it, but it was like trivia equals normie maxing. Because you're just like, how do I know the things that everybody knows, but nobody knows all of them at once?
Yeah,
um,
talk to Ken Jennings about that.
dude, yeah, Ken Jennings, may perhaps the ultimate normie. No one, no one knows more about everything that everybody knows than him. Um,
But it's counterintuitive because if you know everything that like
no, yeah,
everyone
it's
should
like,
know,
it's
then
like
you're
ironic,
weirdest. Then
yeah.
you're weird.
Man, I've wanted to do a Jeopardy slash trivia video for some time because if I understand correctly, I don't follow Jeopardy very closely, but hasn't Jeopardy had multiple like dominant champions, like
Yeah.
multiple people who have had extremely long winning streaks, including Ken Jennings, maybe perhaps the most famous of them, but I'm pretty sure there's other ones that have gone for like
I think his
long
record was
stretches.
beaten by someone. I don't remember, but this sounds familiar. Like there are definitely streakers on there.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, because I mean it's a skill, but it's like a weird skill. It feels like rote memorization, but there's also you're doing like a lot of. I feel like you're doing a lot of triangulation, of like reasoning through like these broad systems of like culture too. Like sometimes you just know the answer, but sometimes you just need to figure out the right footholds to reason to the right answer. Like, yeah, navigating that big latent trivia space is hard. Um and sometimes you need to figure out how to navigate it effectively. Yeah. So trivia maxing, listing 100 things. Gonna keep trying to do that. We've been playing the Spottle too. The Spottle. Spottle's a good
Oh,
one. That one is a very
that's
sweet
good.
spot of like just hard enough, but also like I know music well enough that I can get most of them. Country, I'm like screwed every time though. I don't know like any country people.
The Spottle is very. It feels like it's a similar brain, like that recall of just like I don't know how to describe it. It's like for example, I can oftentimes narrow down the category to like for example like a 90s female singer from America and like R&B and like I
Mm.
know like they're almost always musicians you know if you follow music because they're all within like the top like 1000 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's just like it's like sometimes I can just pull it out, and other times I'm just like, no, who is that? Like I don't even have a clue. Like my mind goes blank, and it's
Yeah.
just like it's
Oh my
similar.
gosh.
It's similar. The ability to like recall, and when you get it, it feels
It
incredible.
hits every time.
It's the
Sometimes it's
best.
easy. Like one of them, a few days ago was the Strokes, and I got that one like very very fast, and I was like, oh, this one's just like too up my alley. Um, but yeah, yesterday the answer was Dr. Dre. I swear I got so close. I listed because I narrowed down like the era, and everything, and afterwards I like searched like like rappers and like the who like debuted in like the early 90s, and I listed like every relevant one besides Dr. Dre. But the thing was when I got to the end of my guesses and it was like the answer is Dr. Dre, and I was like, dude, I forgot about Dre. I was like, I can't
Dre.
believe it. I was mortified.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even
um
think about that. That's a great reference.
yeah, I but it's fun. Yeah, Spottle's fun. Just country. I can't. I got one of them like last week, literally by just guessing names of people who like I figured out his country
That was
because
legitimately a prayer.
yeah, yeah. And then I had like three guesses left, and I was like, all right, what are names that just sound like country stars? So I just started typing, and then I was like looking at like what like came in and like the fill in the blank or like the drop down, and I was like, this one, no, this one, and then on the very last guess, I was like, well, this one sounds like a country star, and that was the answer, and I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. Oh yeah, yeah, I yeah I don't know how to. I guess just playing the games works, but I want to be even more deliberate. I want to like maybe I'll list 100 things every single day. I don't know. Moving on. Um.
One of the
Oh
things
yeah.
you were talking one of the things you brought up that I want to know more about is success hubris.
Dude, okay. I have no idea what that means. I saw that, I wrote that down, and I was looking at it, I was like, success, hubris. If I had to guess, but this doesn't feel like it's something interesting enough for me to want to talk about. Maybe it's something related to like after you find success, you might develop hubris that you think carries over to success in other places. That's not that interesting. I don't know if I feel like there was a real thought there, but I don't know what it is. Um,
Fair enough. Fair enough.
but yeah, hubris, success, hubris. I don't know. Um, we did oh man, so we did this thing over the was it? I think it was over the weekend, last weekend. We did a harrowing activity that ended up being a lot more fruitful and interesting than I expected. We took a deep dive through my entire Facebook Messenger history. Um, so we started, and I'm not going to share anything because I think that's private, and I'm not going to like leak somebody's DMs with me. I don't think that's cool. But we'll beat around the bush. I think we'll get the ideas across.
For
Um,
sure.
we were well first we were just looking at like our old Facebook posts from when we were in like high school and stuff. And then we didn't exhaust everything, but I was like, what are other places we can find like old artifacts, old records of us when we were like a lot younger? And I was like, oh, we can look at my messenger history. And so we literally pulled up my messenger and I just screen shared it, and we just scrolled all the way to the bottom and looked through the messages. I was
Which goes back to like 2010,
2010,
2011.
I think, was
Yeah.
the earliest like real message. There was like one I think from like 2009, but it was like not a conversation or something. Um but yeah, like what 15, 14 years ago, which is crazy that the digital records go back that far. Um and if you're young, like you got even deep, you might be able to find digital instances of yourself when you're like 10 years old. That would be a trip.
It's
Um
crazy how little I recognized of myself until like 20 like 13, 2014. Like
yeah,
me in
yeah.
2011, I'm just like that kid is so fucking annoying. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I mean it's me, but like
Yeah.
it's not
Pre
me. Or
2014 is pretty different. Like the everything is different. But yeah, I guess I wanted to bring it up because my expectations when we did this was that it was going to be I've been bourbon a lot today. My expectation was that it was going to be really uncomfortable. I remember because we start at the top, just like normal, contemporary, recent messages, and as we were scrolling down, I was like, uh oh, like we're getting past a couple years ago. Um, but what ended up happening was like, yeah, there was some stuff that was like cringe stuff that like I don't identify with anymore. Obviously people change over the course of 15 years. That's a given. um but what I was struck by, and I guess this won't necessarily apply to everybody, but it certainly applied to me for this, was that I had a more negative impression of who I was when I was younger than the reality kind of bore truth to. Like, for example, this is, I don't know, this is a little uncomfortable. This is a little awkward to say, but like, I, in my head, had believed that I had like professed my love to multiple girls when I was like a teenager. I thought in my head that that had happened. And this is like benign, teenagers do this kind of stuff. It's whatever. Um but I was like, oh, I was probably some cringe weirdo who was just like, oh, like I like you a lot or whatever. Um and we dug for it, and there was only one instance of it, and it wasn't and it wasn't a profession of love. It was me telling someone that like I was interested, like just me being like, hey, I want to ask somebody to prom who's not you, and I want to get this crush off my chest before I do it. And I thought I did it in a surprisingly cordial way. The situation was handled a lot better than I thought. Um, and it wasn't a random person who I'd never talked to before or anything like that. It was a person who I didn't know super well, but like they knew who I was. We had talked and stuff before. Um, but I thought of myself as a more weird, cringe, awkward. I think my fear was that I had been like a pest and I had like bothered people. I had like made people uncomfortable. Maybe that is true to some extent, but or there were some instances where I thought maybe I'd been mean or unnecessarily cruel or something in the way that younger people can be. And in pretty much every single example, I just was not nearly as bad as I thought. Um, yeah, I don't know how this would apply to other people, but it was like kind of sobering. It made me think like I have this like more negative orientation to like my past than I realize. Usually it's like rose tinted glasses, but I was like, I don't know. I was just like, oh, it's probably some cringe weirdo little kid, and I don't think I was really. I think I was fine. I think I was normal.
No more cringe than like the average little kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
it's tough also applying adult standards like to children too.
yeah. I guess there's also the element of like stuff that was bad was so easily dismissible of like as like, well, obviously a kid would behave like this. Like we found an argument. We found multiple arguments within our friend group, and it was always so interesting to see like both parties being a little bit right and a little bit wrong, and not being able to find common ground because of it, for the silliest, most irrational reasons.
Gosh,
um,
yeah, the level of discourse was not high quality, I'd say.
no, it was pretty. Yeah, like one example was one of our mutual friends really did not like a certain song. He just didn't like it at all. Um, the song is "Jammin'" by Baby's Gang, which we will talk about in a little bit, maybe. Oh, we can touch on "Jammin'." Um, it's this like Italian disco song from like the 80s. Um, for whatever reason, he
It's
just
it's not even crazy popular. It was like they were into disco like at the time disco was going away. So they were like
yeah,
some of the last like they were just desperately trying to hold on to the disco movement type deal.
yeah. Um, but he hated the song, and so he was like mad at me for liking this song, and I was like, I think I was like indignant about that. I was like, what? Like, I can't like music I want? But then in turn, I was like rubbing the song in his face, knowing he doesn't like the song. And so it's like, we're both kind of being assholes here. You're telling me what music I can listen to, but I'm knowing you don't like this music and like pushing it onto you. Is so stupid, but that's just what kids do. It's funny to look back at it now.
If
Um,
you're ever doing React Court for kids, it's almost always everyone sucks here.
yeah. It makes me think like like imagine applying the lens we had because we're so charitable to ourselves. It's so easy to understand how much we've grown. Maybe we should apply that lens to like 50% of the anonymous conversations you see online between people. Just assume those are you 10 years ago and you're like, ah, whatever. Or 15 years ago, you're like, whatever. They're saying stupid shit. They'll grow up. It's fine.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely like lose a lot less faith in humanity when I browse Reddit. When I look at it through the lens of like these are like there are so many teenagers on
there's
this
so many
platform.
teenagers. Yeah. or even just like young adults, you're still kind of figuring
Yeah.
things out.
Yeah, they just there's no room for nuance, and people online, like, it makes sense because people online tend to just lose all nuance too, and you're like, but wait, it's not like you're misconstrued.
Yeah.
It everyone loses. It's not good.
Yeah, it's bad. I think it's not as bad as we think though, because of how, like, if you had a little icon, I'm not saying this should be a thing, but hypothetically, if you could see the age of every single person's like comment on the internet, I think it would really dramatically relax people's like antagonism towards internet people. Because like, let's say you're on Twitter and some like 15-year-old like says some shit to you, and you know they're 15 years old. You're like, I have a decade on this fucker. How offended can you really be? How upset can you really be? Like, yeah, they're annoying. 15-year-olds absolutely can get on your nerves, irk you, but like like with a straight face, can you really get into an argument with someone you know is 15? Like, are you really going to do that? I feel like it would just temper things quite a bit. Um I want to I'll tell the babies gang story really quickly. I don't know, it's maybe it's not that interesting. Um but so my dad, after college, he had this like bin full of like mixtape cassettes, and I used to listen through them when I was younger. And on one of the cassettes, there was a single song on it that I just loved so much, that I thought was so fun, and it was called "Jammin'" by Baby's Gang. Um, I don't know how I figured out the title, but I think I just inferred from the lyrics that it's called "Jammin'" because the chorus is like "Everybody's jamming, jamming, yes sir." um, but what was interesting to me about this song was that at the time that I learned about it from my dad's collection, the song did not have a presence on the internet. This was in like 2010 or something. Um, I remember going online looking for this song, and it just did not exist online. And slowly over time, a YouTube upload comes up. Um, Finally, it gets on Spotify several years later, and now it has like what, like 100,000 plays or something on Spotify. It's not the most, but like it's decent, and the song slaps. It's great. It's a great song.
Where were you
Um,
when the babies gang resurgence happened?
yeah, but it's just so fascinating to me. The song's from the 80s, and for like 30 years, this song just did not have that like digital form, or at least this like internet form. And then suddenly, finally, it materialized onto the internet. Jammin', Jamin apostrophe by Baby's Gang. The song rocks. They also have this song. I was showing you this, Richard. Yeah, because the argument was about Jammin', and then I showed you Jammin'. They also have this song called "My Little Japanese Boy," which is the funniest time. It's so like 80s, like it's like casual racism, but it's like so absurd that it's really hard to be offended by it. Um, but that song has the most interesting lyrics I've ever heard. And at one point in my life, I transcribed them manually through the thick Italian accents of the members. We tried looking up the lyrics, and to this day, the lyrics you find online are just wrong. They're not the actual lyrics. We looked at multiple lyric pages, none of them had the real lyrics. So I might retranscribe them again because the song is like, you're just so, at least for me, it's so confusing. The song is called My Little Japanese Boy, but there's kind of like a romantic tension between the singers and the Japanese boy, but also not. And then like halfway through the song, there's like a magical realism element where all of a sudden like fantasy and like magic exist in this world that was not at all present in the first half of the world. Like the world building is crazy for a song called My Little Japanese Boy. um so I'm a big fan, and the beat is good. The the mix is good.
It
Um,
slaps. Yeah, no, it's genuinely good music. Oh, it's genuinely listenable music.
it's not good, but it's also really good. I don't know how to put it. Like it's not musically innovative. Like I know Italian disco kind of has like a, not that there's a widespread belief, but there is some negative um like orientation towards it because a lot of it's very samey. Disco kind of got played out, but I don't know. It also just I love that sound. There's this song like it's called No Tango Dinero, which is like in Spanish means the same thing as it does in Italian. And the song is just like no tango dinero. Like it's awesome. That means I don't have any money, by the way. Um, I don't know how to say that with an Italian accent, so I didn't even try. Um, yeah, the Italian discos. It's not good music, but it's fun music.
And sometimes that's
Yes,
all that matters.
yes. Okay. Um, I think I want to talk about. Yeah, let's do one last thing
Sure.
before we wrap today. Um oh yeah, I was talking we'll do the I think I can tie it, run a thread, string a thread. I think what is I think I can pull a thread, make a thread. I'm thinking about this too hard. I think I can connect this gestalt of ideas together. Um so in the beginning of the pod, I said I have a new shiny thing the thing I'm engaged with right now. So there's been this recurring thing across episodes. We're talking about social media a lot. I think it's because I've been very interrogative. I've been thinking a lot about my social media usage and how it makes me feel and what I'm getting out of it. And since I've been doing that, I've started to become like hyper aware of like my emotional state as I'm using social media. And what's very like this isn't new per se, but like in terms of like my level of awareness it is, it's just shocking to me that if I go on like Twitter or Reddit or even like YouTube and the videos it like will recommend to you, I'm just the onslaught of negativity bias is just shockingly high, especially what I've started doing is I'll go off in real life. I'll go to the Y or I'm going to karaoke with friends or some kind of occasion the level of like negativity bias coded interactions is so much dramatic it's so dramatically lower outside of like social media than it is on social media. On social media it almost feels like it has the plurality of interactions you own, whereas in real life it's such a tiny slice of what you experience. I don't want to be too touch grass preachy about things. I think the internet has a lot going on for it, but it is kind of uncomfortable like opening up Twitter and like 1 minute in it's like, oh, I just felt anger. That's interesting. And then, oh, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, or what, just so much negativity pushed in your face. um yeah, I'm not trying to be preachy about this. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it's I don't know, you notice it. So one thing I've been thinking is how can I address this? Cuz I'm not going to totally get off social media. I think I get a lot of value out of it too. It's how I learn about, these niche things, niche hobbies, interests people have. It is a way to connect with people as well. It's not like there aren't positives. And one of my solutions very recently was, you know what? Let's make a brand new Reddit account and I'm going to subscribe to subreddits for things that I am as distant from as possible. Things that are not even in my realm of interests. My theory was one, I'll see a bunch of new stuff I've never seen. And secondly, if I do see something negative, it's going to be so outside of my world that I just probably won't be bothered by it at all cuz it's like I just I can't care about this cuz it's not connected to me. So Reddit has like a discovery feature for subreddits and communities. It's not very good, but I just went through it and any subreddit I saw that I was like, I don't know what that is, I just subscribed to. I also just subscribed to a bunch of like local community subreddits all around the world and in the United States, random cities. random countries. Um, and the new Reddit feed I have after having like I don't know, it's like 60 different fresh subreddits is like crack for me because every single post, even if it's just a little bit interesting, is like oh so novel. Um, I I was talking to you about this yesterday, Richard, but like the truckers subreddit, oh man, the truckers have I'm learning about trucking life and like their vibes and culture. Also, the residency subreddit is very interesting as well. I'm trying to think of others.
This is like medical residency.
Yeah, medical residency.
Oh wow,
Um,
scrubs in
yeah,
real
that one
life.
is pretty neat. I, I haven't been doing this long enough to report like a lot of concrete stories, but it's just been so cool. I'm loving it so much, and I want to start doing this for my Twitter feeds and stuff too. This is, I think, what TikTok basically did for me from the start was like, oh, this person likes weird stuff. I'll just keep serving this person weird stuff that they've never seen before. Um, and so that's why I was like enjoying TikTok so much.
You
But
also haven't been there long enough for like the eternal September or whatever
yes,
effect
the
to like to
Eternal
be aware of
September.
it yet. Like if a big post comes up that you would have seen had you been a member like a year ago, like you instead it's all new. It's all so fresh.
Yes,
Like
yes. And I'm very excited to learn the Eternal September
yeah.
nuance of all of these communities. That's one thing I'm very excited about is like I'm gonna figure out which ones are active, which ones I like the most, and I'm gonna notice over time. I'm gonna learn the meta, and I'm gonna learn where they stagnate. Where does the discourse stagnate? What are the things that just time and time again come up over and over and over? Like I want to know like what gets on the ham radio enthusiasts nerds. What's the question that the noobs are always asking? um gosh, I'm trying to think of more concrete examples. Um oh, there was an interaction I saw. Oh, there was one on the residency subreddit. It was this person talking about how like one of the best pieces of advice they'd ever gotten when they were doing their residency was from like this like very experienced surgeon who said like if at some point you start feeling relieved when people die because it means you have less work, it probably means you're burnt out. And then the next reply to that comment was like, oh wow, it's crazy, I've never thought about that, but that is exactly how I feel, and it's really making me like think about like my relationship with my work. And then the next comment was like this like kind of like short spiel, like a couple paragraphs, and it was like, well, actually, like in the medical community, we're gonna see people dying all the time. It's important for us to be able to like separate like the work we do from the emotions of everything. Basically, like defending the behavior. I'm not trying to antagonize them too much, but that is functionally what they were doing. And then the next reply to them afterwards was like, listen, like I get what you're saying, but if your immediate like if your initial reaction to the literal loss of human life is, oh, I'm glad I don't have to do more work, you're probably burnt out, dude.
Yeah.
like like yeah, like maybe you don't need to be sad every time a patient dies or something. It's good to compartmentalize, but relief because you're not doing work is like okay, like maybe let's take a step back for a second.
Yeah.
um oh man, I'm loving it. I'm freaking learning oh man, the tools subreddit too, they just like talk about fucking someone will post a picture, it's like what is this? And then everyone's like, oh yeah, that's like a reverse Dremel, but it's missing these parts, and the person's like, cool, thanks. Oh, and here's the other thing, it's really interesting to see how the curse of expertise manifests in these communities. I saw this long comment in the tools subreddit that was like, man, people don't know how to be handy nowadays. You know, nobody knows how to fix a car anymore or anything. And I was like, man, you are dramatically overestimating how many people could fix cars even 20 years ago, my friend. Like, this is not a normal skill that people have. It's like, people don't even know what, like, this blah, blah, blah tool is. And I was like, people fucking never knew what that tool is, bro. It's, yeah, it's really fun. Um, But yeah, I guess the thread around all of this is I'm trying to find ways to combat negativity bias because I think by default we're gonna lean negative. Doesn't mean need to be all happy, chummy, toxic positivity all the time, but like I don't know. I think it's always good to just not for literally everybody, but for most people, and it includes me, just try and slant yourself towards being a little bit more positive than you think you need to be or that you think you deserve. Because like with the chat history thing, there is a good chance like we literally know negativity bias is a thing. We're
Yep.
attracted to the negativity in things. It's I think it's a survival instinct or something not to not to what is it a lot of people like to look for like these evolutionary like seminal human reasons for why we do things, and sometimes there's truth to them, but sometimes I think people are overvaluing what it means to come from like Neanderthal like um species or whatever. But yeah, for whatever reason we're negative, and so I'm actively trying to combat that. I think it is fruitful. I think it's good for us. Um, yeah, I don't know. I there was so much more I want to talk about for this one, but I had a good time today, Rich.
Yeah, of
It
course.
was a
And you can we can
good
just share
combo.
like you'll probably in the coming podcast share like specific findings too. We'll do like the deep dive on r/
Yes.
Morocco or
Oh yeah.
whatever.
We're gonna have
Um
this segment. It's like fun Reddit community post of the day, and it'll be from some subreddit that has like 20,000 subscribers for some hobby you've never heard of.
Um, I guess so. The last thing to put to just add on to what you were saying and put a close because in like a Jane Schaefer essay, you're supposed to like intro that's
Yeah.
broad, and then you finish with like you go tiny, but then you expand out bigger,
Yeah, the
right?
hourglass, right?
Yeah,
You funnel them in
exactly.
and then you yeah.
Yeah. So for this, I would say like we were talking about happiness, and I think the saying happiness is a choice is a little bit toxic, but I will say that like there are lots of tiny little things you can do throughout the day that will make you happier, and
Yes, yes.
making tiny choices like visiting one subreddit over another one, for example, or like browsing social media in a way that like won't bum you out as much. Well, it may not make you generally, it may not like make you happier. It's definitely not going to make you sadder, I guess, you know? And
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in large part will contribute to your overall level of happiness and well-being.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's no thanks I'm cured, right?
Of
Like,
course.
oh, I have a new Reddit feed, so if I like was feeling depressed or something, it's not going to magically make me feel better.
Yeah.
But I think it's more that like it gives me more delights to chew on. And not all candy is bad, I think. I don't know. Maybe some people say you got to exercise a little dopamine moderation, but I think there's a lot of fun stuff to go around. You just have to be a little cuz I don't know, it struck me. I was like, how come I've never ever thought to do this? It's the thought has never even occurred to me to just completely mix things up, but it was immediately fruitful. Um yeah, and we'll see. And if things suck, I'll just prune them, and I'll just throw in some other thing I've never ever heard about. Um, but yeah, I'm super on this like novelty grind, I guess. Yeah, the trivia, everything. I think I'm just like really excited to see stuff that is just outside of not my worldview because it's not like it's changing me philosophically or ideologically, but just stuff that's not in my purview, in my FOV, if you will.
Yep, exactly.
um, but yeah, I had a good podcast today, Rich. It was nice chatting with you,
Always
as
a pleasure.
always. And thank you for joining us, listeners. Goodbye now.
Goodbye now.